Okay. Okay.
In a collegiate league that looks very similar to this, a lot smaller field, but same type of setup where it has the old mystique to it, and the size of the field is another thing I heard about is that it's one of the bigger fields in baseball, playing surface-wise. So hopefully we'll have some guys that can be able to run a little bit, and like we talked about a little bit, having the opportunity for triples. You talked about the Grissom corner. I think
Gardens,
Grissom Gardens. I actually played with his brother Marquise, and he's coaching now. So it's to me it looks like a classic minor league field that hopefully the guys will be able to do all right on it.
Once you see a field that's that big, will it change your strategy?
First thing I think about is the pitchers are going to love it. I would think, not knowing the wind and that type of stuff. But you get a big field like that right off the bat. It's if our pitchers can actually pound the zone a little bit and have some ability to locate a little bit, they should be able to hopefully have some success in such a big stadium like that. And for us, I'm an aggressive manager. I would really like to try to get as much movement as we can and try to, like I said, get some guys that can run a little bit, not just for the triples and stuff, but for guys that can steal a base here and there, and someone we can move around, and with a big park like that, it kind of lends itself to taking an extra base. That's another thing I see right away with a big stadium like that, where are the outfielders going to have to play, and how aggressive we can be on the bases, trying to make that extra base to give us a little bit more opportunity to have easier RBI opportunities, meaning we get a guy from first to third, or on a fluke type of hit where the outfielders have to be positioned in a certain way, and we're on second base and we're able to score a guy because of the length of the field. Those are the things that jump out right away.
I remember a year ago, Bo said he told the outfielders, "You start running right away."
Yes.
Have you talked with Bo or else to Johnny, who's going to be on your staff, a little bit to find out about the stadium, the league, and everything?
Yeah, I talked to Bo actually about 2 or 3 days ago, and he said to stay and tell everyone hello. He gave me a little background on the field and just typical stuff. He just said it's a big field that's going to play big. It's a big field that plays big. Where there's some fields that actually play a little bit differently. But so we talked about. I asked him about how is it with taking extra bases and being able to work with speed a little bit. He said the guys that had speed really had some benefits to that playing in this field and so yeah, just getting the background on the league. Me never playing in this league, so this is going to be my first experience in the Penn League, and talking to other coaches that have been up here, and with Johnny down in extended the whole time, we'll be talking all the time, so.
What you'll find is the strange thing is you go from a place like here, you go to Staten Island and to Brooklyn, and you're in these fancy fields with the electronic scoreboards and the whole deal. It's a real change.
Yeah, I bet and it's going to be a real change for the players. So the players come here, and especially I haven't looked at do we open up at home?
Yes, you do.
To be able to open up here and be able to see it and say, hey, it's going to be their first minor league experience, and for at least a few days, it's going to be this is the park that's going to be. This is what their memory is of their first game in pro ball. And then to move on and see those other parks when they come back, the mindset of, man, that was really nice, and now we're coming back here. That's just the adjustments that you do have to make on certain fields, and I don't know if the other ones are shorter, in addition to being newer or whatever. But it'll be an adjustment maybe from stadium to stadium, and I'll figure that out as we go.
Looking back when you played, and one thing I bring up with a lot of managers. Would you rather send a teenage kid who's just beginning his pro career to a Jamestown or a Batavia, or would you rather have them in Brooklyn or Staten Island? And of course, the answer is I'd rather have them here without all the glitz and everything.
Yes, that's probably a good point. Just to have their first time either away from either the comfort of their high school or junior college or their family, to coming to a community that's hopefully going to embrace them and be a little bit more of a, there's not 30 things to do after every game. They get to go home and hopefully get some rest so they're prepared for the next day, or get some rest so they're prepared for the 8-hour trip the next day when we leave at 6 in the morning or 5 in the morning. So there's benefits all across the board there, and it comes down to the kids making the right decisions and us as coaches and managers, lending ourselves to helping them make those decisions.
What's your schedule now? What's it going to be like?
From here on?
Prior to coming to here.
With being here or after I go home?
After this, when do you get down to extended?
I'll be sending down. I just got my paperwork the other day. I'm heading down to Jupiter for early winter workouts / mini camp. On the 23rd, we have our first meeting of February.
Okay.
And then we'll work with a lot of kids that were here last year, which is nice, along with a lot of the younger kids that that were in the GCL level that might be coming up here this year. So it'll be good to have to work with those kids, because last year I was with the high A kids that are now going to be moving up, and I was able to see a lot of these kids for one day. After our girls were born last year, I came down for the post-season mini camp / instructional league, if you want to call it that. I was able to see them for a day, so I was able to talk to these guys again. Now Kyle, I got to see a lot. He was an extender with me the whole time, or with that group the whole time. But so the 23rd we meet. I believe the 25th is the first day of mini camp. March 3rd is when the rest of the coaches report, and I believe March 4th or 5th is when the actual spring training hits. And then we crank it up, and I'll be, it'll be interesting, because last year I know Bo was kind of roaming around because there's not a team that breaks.
Yeah.
He was a rover,
yeah.
But also there were certain days where he had games or not had games, but a lot of his kids early on were dispersed throughout the other teams, because they don't have most of our kids, are going to come from the draft.
Right,
so
yeah,
I might be able to jump around, which is going to be kind of nice. I'll get to see some of the guys that I worked with last year, along with a lot of the new guys that will be coming up this year.
So that you'll be a rover too then for him?
No.
Little bit, or?
I would probably say I'm going to be more of a fill-in guy, kind of a batting practice guy. Come in, that's one of the things that they know I can do pretty well. So I'll probably be throwing BP for this squad, throwing BP for that squad, along with throwing BP and actually running the fundamentals for our Jamestown group. There'll still be a Jamestown group once spring training starts up. It'll just be the younger kids. Even in spring training, it'll just be the younger kids that were in GCL last year. That it won't be a full squad. It'll probably be 15 to 20 kids that'll I'll still kind of be managing, but it won't be like the Jupiter team or the Greensboro team, where they have 30 guys there at spring training and they're trying to figure out who's going to go where.
One last thing, what's it going to feel like that for a first game here and your pro manager for an organization?
I'm excited for it. I'm really excited to get back into managing. It was a lot of fun last year being a hitting coach and just being in and getting the feet wet with the organization, and just thrilled to first of all be with the Marlins. The top guys are really quality guys, and to be able to learn from them, and then in addition to bring on my first managerial day and then the managerial season. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited for it, and just looking forward to the challenge.
Will your dad be in it all this season?
Oh yeah, he'll be here for sure.
He'll be real proud.
He'll be here for sure. Now he might be here for opening night. He has tended to come to a lot of my opening days. He showed up on my first pro ball game down in Burlington, Iowa, out of the blue in '94. So he might just show up out of the blue and kind of be here, because it's not that far away either, driving wise. From Madison, where I'm from, where I live now, it's only about a 12-hour trip or less. And he's from northern Minnesota, but it would not surprise me if he just shows up one day and, hey, there he is, and didn't let me know.
Yeah,
so.
Yelling up in the stands.
Oh yeah,
yank the pitcher.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
He'll be wanting to work with the pitchers down there since he's a pitching coach. So.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You bet, anytime.
What did Bo tell you about the New York Penn League?
He said there is it's a lot of travel. The short trips, 2-3 game sets, or two games here, 2 games there, 2 games there, is much different from what I was probably used to last year with Jupiter, where we would go for 4, at least 4, if we were going on the road. In addition to that, we'd also have 4 and then 4 and then 2 or something like that. We'd have a 10-game road trip. Right. Where if we have a 10-game road trip here, we're playing 5 different teams. But you know what? That's actually what I was used to with in the collegiate summer league I was in. We were all 2-game sets. Right. And the first year we did that, after being a player in the longer game set, going to the 2-game was like, wow. So the wow factor of being here for 2 and then whoop, then gone for either home or another part of the state or Pennsylvania or wherever we're going. I think of that wow factor for me won't be as much because I've kind of been through it. This, the Northwoods League was set up almost identically to this league.
Right. Did Bo give you any other kind of instruction as far as what to expect in the community? Because this is a smaller community, but maybe the size of community you're used to. Yeah,
I really am used to the size of the community. He said that the fans are loyal fans. They know the game, he said. He said we're going to enjoy the banquet tonight. He said there's definitely a core that knows what's going on, that understands the game and understands the history of all these kids that have come through, and he said that it's just different. It is what it is. It's a New York Penn League team that is kind of nestled into a smaller community that the kids can kind of buy into and not get into kind of like we talked about the glitz and glamour of the bigger cities in their first year.
At some point you sought the opportunity, or the opportunity sought you from the Marlins operation. Why them? Why that organization?
It really worked out that with my connection with Steve Foster, who was a manager when I was a hitting coach. He hired me in the collegiate league, and then I followed him as a manager in between going to Alaska. He took a year off after he managed, and then his family said, "Hey, we really need to get you back in baseball." I don't know if they wanted him out of the house or what, but when he got the Marlins job, we've always been so tight and talked a lot that I was going to shut down and take a year off after my last year of being a woodchuck manager, and my son was at the time 3, and I was just going to take a summer off, and then the next year following into that go into trying to get into pro ball and making my resumes and getting them out there, and now that I had some experience, I thought that I'd be able to land something, and he called me, Steve did, and said, just so you know, there's spots that are potentially open this year, and if you want to go, this might be a good time to go. Right. And so I sent him my resume and had long talks with my wife about it, because even when we first met, I said, well, here's the deal. It's going to be a situation where, we met in 96 and 97, 98 when we started getting serious. I was like, this is going to happen. And she saw me go to the Pirates and get released by the Pirates, and go to the Red Sox and get released by the Red Sox. And she understands the avenues of the game now a little bit. And one last time before we got married, I said, now I understand that there's going to be some baseball things going on where I'm going to be gone. And when we talked about it, we were both gung-ho for it, very excited about it. We didn't know where we were going to land last year. We just knew that they were going to offer. We were hoping that they'd offer a hitting coach position, which one of my passions is hitting. I love teaching hitting, and it worked out that the Jupiter position opened up. There's multiple positions that opened up, and I was thrilled to be able to go all the way to Jupiter to start my career, and it was a great experience, great organization. Got to learn from some guys that have been around a while with Tim Cousins and Reed Cornelius, along with being in Jupiter the first year. You're not just getting sent out to a city, you're actually you're still in the city where all the Rovers come in, all the minor league setting is there. There's 2 teams essentially there, with Extended and with your club, and then with your club and then GCL. It seemed like every day there was at least 2 or 3 Rovers in the house. so I really got to know those guys really well. So it was a great experience, and along with being able to communicate and create relationships with them, I think was huge.
You went through just about every emotion possible, clearly wanting to be in baseball, with the fact that from independent league to the Red Sox, the Pirates, and others. What's that do for your psyche? I mean,
it makes you tougher, that's for sure. It's one of those things that my first year, I actually had to start. I didn't get drafted, so I started. I had an opportunity to go down with the Astros and work out and hopefully get a potential contract with them out of college. And on my way through, I went to this Frontier League tryout in Ohio, and ended up doing really well. The team really liked me, and they had kind of a little draft, and ended up getting drafted there with guaranteed playing time. And I was like, well, it's the first year of the league, and wow, it was by far the first year of the league that wasn't really thought out really well. The concept was good, and now the Frontier League it's just booming, and they've brought in a lot of the minor league teams and cities that have kind of folded in the Penn League and then the other leagues, Midwest League. That it's a beautiful league now. It's a great league. But when I was there in '93, it was quite the experience. That here's pro ball, and then the following year going down to with Montreal, and getting that, working so hard, working out, trying to get into organized ball, and sending out kind of the resume bios like I had to do with the Marlins, and finding out that I was actually working with the Winter League with the Astros after my Frontier League experience, and having some success there. The Expos called and kept them alone for 30 minutes. We worked out, and it was maybe less than 30 minutes, and they offered me a contract right then and there. So from all that time to work through it, and went to a 30-minute workout and signed there, and went back home and came back for spring training, and was able to play a couple years with them. And great experience. It was the rush, the highs, the lows, the what are you going to do after you get released in spring training? Are you trying to catch on here? Are you trying to go to independent? You need to play. And so the independent route was the best for me, and it allowed me to get back with the Pirates, and then again get back with the Red Sox. So the highs and lows kind of keeps you can't get too high and you can't get too low, but when the things move up and down, moving you through your life, you kind of learn a good balance. You kind of learn a good, just a mental stability that, stuff happens sometimes.
That's right.
And that's just the way it goes.
Obviously, you have an understanding wife, because that's not always easy to live with that.
Oh yeah, I'm telling you, I'm truly blessed with my family situation. I have a beautiful wife, Terry, who is, like I said, we met in '96 when I was playing with the Madison Black Wolf at the time, at the Independent League in the Northern League. And if I wouldn't have got released by the Expos and wouldn't have landed in Madison, we would have never met probably, and who knows what would have happened after that. But it was a great situation for us, and like I said before, as we ran through, I kept telling her, when I'm done, I'm not gonna just stop, because baseball's in my blood. It's gonna happen, and ultimate goal is to get to the big leagues as a coach, and she bought into it, and she's been 100%. She's a great supporter of me. Obviously, she's a great foundation that allows our family to function when I'm not there. Right. And maybe it functions better when I'm not there, to be honest with you. And she does a great job with the kids and our 4-year-old boy and our 2 girls.
Is this a family thing? Was your dad intimately involved in baseball?
Oh yeah, he was my high school baseball coach. Mm-hmm. He was he coached me all the way through levels and some summer ball and this and that, and when I was younger, he kind of let me go to other coaches and learn from other guys and move on up in a really small town up in northern Minnesota, Ada, Minnesota. When I grew up there, it was 2,000 people, so small town. And actually, he was a funny story that he likes to always tell is he was a painter when he was a teacher, chemistry, physics guy, and in the summers, to make more money, because teachers obviously don't make that much money, he would paint. Well, when I was 15 years old, turning into 16, his thing was, well, you need to start making some money. So I started painting with him, and I don't know if I wasn't very good or just didn't like it or whatever, but that's when I got my first coaching job. I decided to get, he credits himself for getting me into coaching because I didn't like painting, so he said, well, why don't you go take this job in a real small town, and started working with 11 and 12-year-olds as a 16-year-old. And that was my first coaching gig when I was a sophomore in high school, and ever since then I've been coaching baseball and kind of moved up within that town. And then when I went to college, I knew that eventually I wanted to coach, and went into education and coaching in college because of that. And I coached at every level all the way through. That's one unique thing that I guess if you do look at all the levels that you could possibly coach, there's not one that I missed.
Well, here you are today, a manager of a professional baseball team.
Yeah, it's a great experience, and it's what I want to do. It's what I love doing, and I really have a passion for it. And that's when you're doing something, when your job is something that you have a passion for and you love doing, life is pretty good.
Ada, Minnesota Twins. Was that your team?
Yeah, in Minnesota, the Twins are always in the back of the head. It's kind of like no matter where you're from, that's kind of whatever your home team is. You kind of like them anyway, whether if you did like them or not, because that's who you go watch. I was more of a players guy. I was actually a pretty good fan of the Red Sox at the time. Turned into an Oakland A's fan when McGuire and those guys came through, and Terry Steinbach and being a catcher, that type of stuff. Even back in the day, Don Mattingly, watching those guys being a left-handed hitter. I really liked, instead of being really gung-ho on one specific team, I really liked players and watching them play and watching them work, and watching them put together and reading stuff on how they do things, how they try to get better, and even Kent Herbeck and obviously Kirby Puckett, Gary Gaetti, all those guys coming through. We had Timmy Laudner. I mean, there was a lot of them that came through that definitely caught my eye, and like I said, being more of a player guy, it was kind of my focus.
You're playing in the backyard by yourself, and you're doing your imaginary home run hitting. Mm-hmm. Was there a guy you were trying to emulate?
Ooh, there were so many. It was we actually had they still in the same house. We have a huge front yard, and we would literally have little league wiffle ball games / tournaments with stats, with everything. We had about 12 kids that would come over, and we'd have teams of 5 or 6, and certain things were home runs, and that road line was a home run. We have doubles and triples, and my little brother would be writing stuff down, and my mom would be out there, my dad would be out there, and just from day one, baseball, and we did it for all the sports because it was just the small towns. What we did, very seasonal type area where you're not going to just do baseball. It was football, it was basketball, all the way through. It was very unique, and it was very nice. It was something that you do not see these days a lot, where kids are just out playing baseball, non-organized, wiffle ball, playing catch, playing long toss, just kind of doing that stuff. That most of the kids that do that now are very much into baseball only, or if they're doing it for football, they're very much, football's my only thing. So growing up in that time in that town, it was a good thing, and really ingrained the love of baseball.
Aside from you, who's the biggest name out of Ada, Minnesota?
Oh boy, that's a good question. We had a couple actors come out of there. Forget his stage name now, but he was actually a year older than me. His name is Paul Newman, of all things. He spent a couple years on Days of Our Lives. Roger Moe, who was a senator for state and has been kind of in the talks with national stuff. He grew up in Ada, Minnesota. There's probably some others that are out there, but those are probably the biggest two that are out there that would be like a public figure at least that people know. There's other people that have gone on and done great things with science and stuff like that, but small town.
Well, Jamestown is also not a little bit bigger, but Lucille Ball, you'll hear.
Okay.
Lucille Ball came from this area.
All right.
That'll be your conversation when they say Jamestown, New York. Where's that? Well, it's the home of Lucille Ball.
There you go.
Exactly. Your expectations for this year. I mean, as you walk in, we've had, just from a fan's perspective, the last few years, we've had some talent. If you describe talent as number 1 draft pick, number 2 draft picks, and the success on the field hasn't matched it necessarily. But I know in your world, that's not how you measure success. Or should I, maybe that's a question. How do you measure success at this level? Or what have they told you as to how to measure success?
Right. The first thing that has to be understood is that this is their first pro experience. And where some kids are in a advanced rookie level or a rookie level where they can they're not really playing in front of a whole lot of fans. They can get a year's under their belt. And then they get to come either here or to a Greensboro type of situation. It's a situation, I think, that lends itself to multiple things. Obviously, for me as a manager, we want to win. We want to create a winning attitude, first of all. We want the clubhouse to create a winning atmosphere. But along with that, bringing in a situation where we're trying to develop these kids, trying to develop winning kids. And that's a big thing that the Marlins talk about. This is their first Marlins experience. It's not only their first pro experience, but it's their first Marlin experience. And my job, what I see as my job, is introducing the Marlins way to these kids, trying to teach them how they're going to develop through the Marlins organization. And so when they go to the next level, let's say they have a great month in June, and they get to be promoted somewhere, they get to go to Greensboro. Well, they've had a good, it's not just we're just throwing the ball out there and we're playing. We have the Marlins way of going about taking our ground balls, our work ethic, our BP, and to give them that experience of here's how it is, and bringing them into the mix of having them mesh into this player that the Marlins are hopefully going to project to the big leagues and get there as soon as possible. Everyone's goal is to get to the big leagues, no matter where you're at this level. Your ultimate goal is to shoot and get there. And the thing about today's kids, and it's even with this 19, 20, 21, 22, 23-year-olds, they want it now. They want to go now. And a lot of times we need to slow down and really work on the process of, hey, you know, your aluminum bat swing really worked there, but we need a couple of adjustments that need to happen. And so some of the things that maybe the fans won't see throughout the year, but that we'll see as coaches, especially with video breakdown and this type of stuff, is a kid that's making a minor change that's going to make a major improvement for him in the future, where he might have to go through some growing pains here, meaning that for a couple weeks his timing is a little off, or there's something with, we don't make drastic changes, but a tiny change can in a game where you're trying to hit a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, and you have 0.4 seconds to do it, and you're making a minor adjustment in a cage in the tee work, and then eventually trying to get that to the field. That process of, is it getting better, is it improving, and then by the end of the season we say, oh, there it is, it's starting to come. So then they get to continue that in minicamp, then they get to continue it all off season. Then they hopefully get to bring it and improve it in Greensboro. And then it's just that process of continually moving up and improving. The biggest thing in pro ball that the kids are going to find out is that they have to be consistent. If they're going to move up levels and they're going to be productive and be able to play at the next level and higher and higher and higher, is every level you go up, the players are just more consistent. They do what the kids that you'll see here, they show it once or show it twice. The next level, they show it more times. AA, AAA, they show it all the time. Then it's just a matter of getting your break, or someone, whatever happens to get you to the big leagues. But when you get to AA and AAA, those guys do it all the time. There's not a player that comes through usually that it's still an occasional glimpse. It's like, oh, there it is. You can see it right away. Where that glimpse sometimes is just a flicker here that we're trying to create into a more of a flame as they go up.
Player-wise, I recognize that this league is principally draft-driven. Are there some guys that were here last year that may be early on pegged to come back?
There may be. Last year being my first year with the organization, there was a couple guys that had that plan that they were going to go. What happened last year, and it might have just been a fluky, weird year, but there was some situations where kids got hurt right away in Greensboro or even with us in Jupiter. And so the plan was for them to make sure they go to Jamestown or repeat Jamestown to get better and make some numbers and hopefully move on from there. With the injuries, we got to see a few of them at Jupiter that were in Jamestown last year. Guys like Tanner Rogers, that type of situation, and bringing a hard-nosed kid like that in our setting and a young kid into our setting. It was great to have him, even though he knew that he was probably going to go down later. He was with us for 2 months last year and was able to work with the catching instructor who was our manager, and I was a catcher when I played. And to go through that process and for him to actually kind of work on his outfield play and to work on his bat. I mean, it's a situation where there are some repeats, there are some plans in place, but if someone does get hurt and a kid has that experience that under their belt of being in Jamestown over the kid that has the experience of being in the GCL, they're going to bump that kid up maybe before they were to come to Jamestown, and the switch would just be made then. And especially if there's a kid, what did happen a little bit last year too is kids were sent to Greensboro to see how they would do. And if they were to happen to get hurt or something were to happen, if they had to come down and rehab and the kid from extended would go to Greensboro and do well, then the kid started in Greensboro might end up coming here to repeat and get at bats and solidify the squad a little bit just from being here and kind of being. You always need a couple guys. You don't need them, I guess, but it's always nice to have a couple guys that have been in the city, been around, and the guys can relate to and say, hey, well, here's this, that's that, and so it's an experience for them to come back as almost a second-year leader, which can have some major benefits also.
Having been at the major league squad or teams, independent leagues, you've seen it all. And if I were to ask you to fill in the blank, the funniest thing that ever happened to Darin Everson, what would you say?
Oh, the funniest thing. Boy, I might have to think about that one. There's, I don't know if it was the funniest thing, but there was, one of the toughest things is the Florida sky sometimes, and you're trying to make that impression. You've got this going on and that going on, and one day in spring training with Montreal, the ball has absolutely hit a mile, and I'm playing first. I played first and caught, and absolutely hit a mile, and I think I see it, and I think I got a beat on it, and it was either my first or second year of spring training, so I was able to land a team after this happened, so it worked out. But you see it and you see it and you don't see it, and it fell right behind me. I fell backwards, rolled back, picked up the ball, stand up, and there's guys on first and third, and there was a pop-up, that went 40 feet. But it went, so high up in the air. But one of those situations where you just want to tuck your head in and go back to the hotel and start new the next day. Definitely, baseball is such a humbling sport, and that was definitely one of the most humbling situations that I've had, just because it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened, and we roll from there. And just that situation, you learn how important the next day is. Right. And that's one thing that we're going to talk about a lot with our kids is you have to move on to the next day. You have to, you're trying to get better now, but let's move on to the next day. You're going to fail a ton in this game, and you have to move on. And these kids that are coming in, they're great college hitters with aluminum bats and everything else, and guys that were throwing about 5 miles an hour slower on a consistent basis. They still see their guys that could throw hard, but they come in and they do what they do, and they come here, and it's sometimes some kids can adjust really well, but there's other kids that will be pulling their hair out because they can't figure out why they can't get a hit with this wood bat, even though they were in maybe a collegiate summer wood bat league. Or they, the common one is I swing BP, I swing a wood bat in BP all the time, and I come here and I can't by a hit. And it's one of those things, get to the next day, move on, get better, move on, get better, move on, and hopefully we can make things connect.
So Jay Blackwood said yesterday, I was doing that same conversation. He goes, here I was in college, and I always hit well over 400. You know, coming down here, I got 300 just hitting, and it was a great year. I was at All-Star.
Yeah.
But the difference,
Yeah.
is an extra bat out of 10, you don't succeed.
Yeah, and for at least an extra one, especially the first year.
Yeah.
And he put together a great year, and that's another neat thing about pro ball is you get reports on all the teams, and you get to kind of keep track of the kids. So like this year, for me, I'll be keeping track of a lot of kids that are in AA and a lot of kids that repeat Jupiter, and I'll obviously watching our guys in extended while we get ready for our season. So it'll be fun watching the guys that I followed last year in Jamestown and GCL and Greensboro, having them hopefully have a lot of success in Greensboro.
How's your computer skills?
Pretty good.
Pretty good?
Pretty good.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, at least it is to me, being a guy who's a few years older than you, and that wasn't part of my life. Yet, part of your, remember Bo used to talk about this, you're on the field, what we see as a fan, 2.5 hours, going through all the motions. You're spending more time after the game inputting.
Oh yeah, and especially in this league,
Yeah.
because what happens is you need to do a report on every kid that you deem as someone that has some value for the organization. There's so many teams in this league where in Jupiter there was, you'd have your deadlines and your reports and stuff like that. But you always had a couple months to get them in and get them done. Here you play a team, boom, 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 you're done with them already in 4 games, and their report must be done within that week, and you're doing that. And so my guess, and I understand what Bo's talking about, just from seeing the makeup of the league, is not only do you have your game report, you have your report for you have a pitching report, you have your report for all of their players. All of our players, how they're doing, and then you have the organizational report for, let's say, the Phillies. When we're done with the Phillies, Chatton and those guys need to get their reports within a week after we're done with them, and it makes less work for us as we go. It's actually to help us, so we don't have to do 20 teams at the end of the season. But it's just one of those things that is just another computer thing. Here we roll, and not to mention all the computer stuff and conversations and emails and phone calls that you get from the brass prior to the game.
What's the pecking order? Who do you report to? Is it Brian?
Brian and JP, John Pearson.
Yeah.
And obviously Jim Fleming's involved with it, but for the most part, the guys that I'll have the most conversations with will be JP, John Pearson, and Brian Chatton, and those are the main guys. And also talking to the rovers of the hitting rovers and the pitching rovers and our infield guys, and they'll come in, and the communication between when they come in and they're coming into this city and they'll be there for 4 days and we're going to work on this, this, and this, and then the next rover comes in and we're going to work on this. And my guess, especially up with a bunch of guys that it's their first experience, first time that they lay their eyes on them, that especially in June, my guess is we're filled up with rovers here all the time. My guess is this locker room will be when we're home, we'll have 4 to 5 people in it on a daily basis through June. That's my guess, so that everyone can see the players.
When a new player comes to you, do you anticipate there'll be kind of a Velcroed sheet on their uniform that says, "Thou shalt only pitch 50 pitches, thou shalt..." Do they have that kind of instruction that goes with these guys?
There are some of them, especially the guys that our scouting department and our player development department deemed as being this is the guy we want in the first round, second round, third round. The value that gives our organization, or that automatically the organization looks at these guys with the higher round picks. There are definitely people that will pull the reins back on if they have too many innings. If the thing that's not noticed sometimes in pro ball is, especially the kids that come in college, they may have been in a college program where their coach / manager really just every 3 or 4 days they were out there regardless. And you don't see it a lot, but there's people that I don't want to say abuse, but just They ride their horses hard, and they're going to ride them out as long as they can go, especially if they're doing well. The hitters don't have days, not having a day off, and some kids don't want days. I was that guy. I did not want a day off, so believe me, I understand that end of it. But getting out there and making sure that we don't overdo kids that have just got done doing 100 innings pitching, coming into us, and we don't want them to have 75 more.
Right.
We'll have them maybe on a 5-man rotation, maybe on a piggyback start situation, which I'm sure you guys have seen here, where a guy goes 2 or 3 innings, and another guy comes in and does the kind of the middle innings, and it's just that situation of we need to make sure we want this kid to be here, we want him to have success, we want him to develop his pitches, but the win-loss record for that individual kid isn't as important as making sure that he's healthy into the next year. So kind of our investment is protected as we get to the next year.
Right. How much discretion do you feel like you'll be given on a day-to-day basis? Just, whether it's the prospect, and I know you have a sense of who the prospects are, who have that, and they may be 0 for 40, but they're gonna swing.
Yeah.
Even though you got a guy on a bench who could probably make contact and make a difference.
Yeah, that happened. That's the two-way street of professional baseball, where you have to develop the guys. We have to get guys certain number at bats. The guys that our organization deems as being those prospect guys and projected guys. And the nice thing about that is you always have surprises. You always have guys that come in and they weren't projected to be that guy, but they're in the lineup, and then they're in the lineup twice a week. Then they're in the lineup 4 times a week. And as you're talking to the guys on the phone, you're saying, this guy, he's got a chance. He can really do it, and they kind of win over. They come in and see him, and they kind of win over at bats, win over games. But that's a dilemma. That's it's one of those. It's not really a dilemma. It's just one of the things that happen. It's one of the things where, our big draft pick's going to come in. He's going to start hitting in the 2-hole spot, and our projection is he's going to stay there the whole time if possible, and maybe lead off, maybe down to 5. If he struggles, we might put him 6 or 9 and have him roll around and try to roll to the top of the lineup, get him some more fastballs. What we're trying to ultimately do is put these kids in a situation to be successful, and I think that's a main part of our position, of my position as a manager, is trying to get a situation where these kids can come in and at least have the opportunity to be as successful as possible. It's not going to happen all the time.
Right.
But a situation where if a kid's obviously struggling where he's at, we're going to try to make a move to slide him in a different slot to hopefully let him see some more fastballs, let him get his confidence back, because the biggest thing, one of the biggest things that I see with the younger kids, especially the kids coming in and when I played and everything else, is the first thing that wants to go is that confidence. It's they come in hitting 420. They're All-American. They had 22 home runs and 70 RBIs in a collegiate season, and they come here and they're hitting 160, and they have a fluke home run in a real bandbox stadium, and they have a double here and a triple here. But they're looking at 90 at-bats, and they're looking at 180 going, what's going on? But not only is he saying that, but all of his friends, hey, he's like, oh, I signed with the Marlins, I'm doing this. And everyone's calling him. How's it going? Oh, they're coming in, they're seeing the batting average, the pressure's put on, this is put on, the parents, and hopefully each kid has his own supportive staff, but that doesn't always happen. So that's kind of our position too, is we need to make sure that we're trying to get him in a successful position to understand failure and then how to accept and move on to the next day.
Yeah. Given all you've done, I mean, that's part of the psychology that you've probably lived through, and that's one of the appeals, I suppose, they look to you.
Yeah, I mean, because we draw on experience, and I'm going to have a really good experienced staff here with Charlie and with J-Rod, and so there's going to be a lot of experience that way. A lot of things where they can draw on from our staff, or hopefully, like I said, we're going to be putting them in a mindset to be successful, in a physical set to hopefully give the opportunity to be successful. And I can't stress enough how important the mental game is. Yeah. We talked about it all last year. And I had all the guys that were here 2 or 3 years ago last year in Jupiter, and everyone got moved up almost regardless of what they did the year before, because a lot of guys were moved out of the big league club, and a lot of guys were promoted. And so we had some kids that went to Jupiter and struggled a little bit, and we talked about it a lot. Talked about moving on to the next day, understanding that it's not all your mechanics or your physical stuff. It's about going in there and being mentally successful, that you're going in there knowing you're going to get a hit, or you're knowing you're going to do this, instead of wondering, will I, or when will I get my next hit, or when will I be able to finally throw a strike or strike somebody out again. That's the other thing too, is with strikeout guys that are strikeout pitchers in college. They'll come in here and if they get hit around early on, they're like, boy, I don't know if I'm good enough. The question always comes up in their brain, whether they bring it, whether they talk about it or not, will I be good enough? And most of the time, that it's a thing where our players, hopefully they can come talk to us and say, hey, we try to pump these guys up all the time and say, you wouldn't be here if we didn't think you had this, this, or this.
Right.
And to understand that situation and get it ingrained in their head, because if they lose their confidence, it's a tough thing to get back.
Everson, is that Scandinavian?
Oh yeah, very much Norwegian.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, very much in the Scandinavian community. I don't know if you know that, James.
Good.
More Swedes than Norwegians, but
We have some Swedish. They're farmers from North Dakota, essentially, is what.
Right,
Yeah.
right. We have a lot of folks, so you'll fit very well. This has been terrific. You're a very engaging guy, and I really appreciate your time, and welcome to Jamestown, New York.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, this will see. I do this. I'm a lawyer by trade.
Okay.
This is for fun, but we have a public access channel that is wonderful, gets a lot of exposure. So
Okay.
your grin will be all over.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, it's a great thing. Well, welcome to Jamestown, and
I appreciate it.
I look forward to meeting your family and when the kids come, and everybody else. So
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's gonna be fun having Jared roll around the clubhouse, and that's an experience I can't wait to have. And this will be the first year that he's going to be old enough to kind of recognize what's going on. Really, he turns 5 in June, and kind of being in a setting where it's real comfortable for now that he's the manager's kid to just come in and hang out with the players, and no matter what level you're at, the players are always very cool to kids, and I'm looking forward to that for his experience.
yeah, terrific. Thank you.
You bet.